Good afternoon. My name is Chris Adams, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ceeable. And so Siebel is developing a mobile digital technology to help people with low vision disorders. And what I'm going to talk to you today about, essentially give you an overview of how our technology works in conjunction with VR and how other VR and AR devices are being applied to people with or disorders with that affect vision. So as I was talking to someone earlier today, the market is driving the adoption of this kind of technology. As you can see the numbers, over 285 million people worldwide have visual or vision disorders. And this number is expected to double over the next 5 years. So that's 500 million people. So the capitalists in me and the folks in this conference are all looking at those numbers and saying, how can we help treat those folks? And so AR and VR are going to be applied to this market with rapid adoption over the next 5 to 10 years. The current cost of treatment, which consists mostly of drugs, is about $5 billion. And because of that, you have limited access to those drugs and primitive devices in both the United States and worldwide. So as I mentioned, the clinical benefit of the technology for AR is pretty broad. Essentially, you'll be able to present a combined virtual world layered on top of the real world to help these people see better. The market for AR, VR is just staggering, as you folks know. That's why everybody's here. About $120 billion for augmented reality and about $30 billion for virtual reality. And this number is just going to continue to grow. So our technology, how does it work and how is it going to fit in to the AR and VR applications that we'll talk about today? So essentially what we have now is a tablet computer where we present to the user a grid-like device, and the user traces defects on the screen. And so we will take the results of that and map it directly to a VR AR device. And so what's important in this picture here is you have a technician with the tablet computer, as I just mentioned, and you present that grid-like pattern to a user who has some sort of visual defect. And what's interesting in this picture is that this is a technician performing the test in a mall in Russia with an 80-year-old woman. So the grid is presented to the user. The user is instructed to close one eye. They reach out with their finger and they trace areas of the screen where they have a hard time seeing. The computer then maps that area of defect and goes to the next screen, and you do this about 5 or so times. And what's interesting is that we as humans, and particularly as children, have learned that when you reach out with your finger, you can affect the world around you. So it becomes automatic. It becomes an automatic sense and an automatic motion for us as we touch our real world. So our test report then comes back from that, and we're able to give patient demographics, how many grid areas did they not see, and then on the bottom left, on the bottom right-hand corner there, you have a 3D map of this person's visual field defect. And what's interesting here is that this person had preserved vision in the center, as you can see, as a plateau, but their periphery was pretty bad. This is a standard case or typical case of glaucoma. And the AI applications of this is that we continue to see these patterns over and over again as we test patients. So eventually, the computer will be able to see this pattern here, and say, oh, this is a glaucoma patient, this is macular degeneration, and make the automatic call. And what we want to do is we want to take this information in real time and port it directly to VR and AR devices. So this is an example of how it will work. You do the test, you have the data outputs, as I mentioned before, and it goes directly to a AR or AR device in real time. So the person will be able to have their visual field defects corrected in real time and mapped directly onto the LCD screen. This is just an evolution of the technology. You have the current standard of care. It costs about $30,000, weighs about 100 pounds, and it's pretty proprietary. Then you come along with our tablet system here, generic tablet, about $200 in cost, and of course about £1. And then, of course, you have the virtual reality application, where instead of the tablet, now you have a virtual world where the person is tracing in the air and making their mark on their virtual grid. And then this is mapped as particular visual field defects. So that's how our technology would work. And we would take that same information and put it into a variety of devices. So this is a company called Brainport that's making a tongue-based sensor. Very unique application, as you can imagine. So essentially, they have a camera and a sensor that the user bites down on. The camera sees a cup, and then the user, based on trained sensations, says, okay, when I get that sensation, that must be a cup-like object. So you can imagine that there would be a whole library of images that the user would be trained on. So a person standing in front of them, a chair, a doorway, a car, a bus, for example, and these inputs would be directed to the tongue-based sensor and give the user a sensation, and the user would be trained to recognize as certain images. It's a way to think about vision in a different manner. You're using your other senses to give your brain a visual input that's not really through our eyes.
Ultimately, that's to improve vision or to not have it deteriorate?
No, this is a case where these people are essentially blind. And so they're not getting any input in their optic nerve. And you have to keep in mind that our brains are recognizing sensory input from the outside world. And so if you can train your other senses to take the place of your eyes, and that's what this is trying to get to. It's pretty interesting technology, as you can imagine. And this is commercially available. So one of the other significant disorders is retinitis pigmentosa. Essentially, it's tunnel vision. These people have no peripheral or degrading peripheral vision. It affects about 300,000 people worldwide. As you can imagine, I can see him, but I can't see the chair next to him, for example. So these people tend to have collisions, either with objects or others as they walk around. And it makes it very difficult for them to navigate in the real world. So a researcher at Harvard has developed a system using Google Glass where the camera in the Google Glass looks out into this room or into a scene and maps the sharp edges in the room and highlights them, just big bright lines. And so as the user, where they have the preserved visual field, they look directly into the LCD screen. And now they can see the outline of the room in bright lines. And so if I'm walking up to you, for example, and I see something moving on my right in my screen, now instead of either walking into it or not seeing it, I can then turn my head, and now I can see directly what's coming at me. It's a very, very interesting application. And this technology, of course, is borrowing on Google Glass, and it's being developed, and it has been developed over the past few years, and it will be commercially available in the next couple of years or so. This is a technology that's developed by a company called ODG and New Eyes. I think ODG is in the Bay Area, and they have an application for helping people with low vision. Essentially, they have cameras on the headset or the eyepiece, and then they project the image of the camera directly onto screens in front of the person's eyes. So if you're looking at a piece of paper, or you're looking at a book, essentially the camera takes the image, projects it onto the screens, and now you can read or you can watch something. And this is commercially available as well. This is the technology this is augmented reality technology for macular degeneration. Essentially, these people who have macular degeneration start to lose their vision significantly over a period of time, and they experience the world in distorted or missing information. So what we're doing is developing a technology that can help these folks remap their vision. So we're taking the Siebel inputs that they have already tested for, and we're taking that information and mapping it directly into a computer. That computer is now looking out into the world, bringing back the information and remapping it to the person's distortion level. So whatever defects you have, the computer corrects in real time for those defects. So it turns a wavy scene into a straight scene. And again, this is the same sort of technology where you have a smartphone-like device taking an image of a piece of paper with some words on it, using the vision correction input that I just mentioned, and mapping it directly to the machine. The machine corrects for it, and corrects for it specifically to your own defect. So this is real personal therapy and personal medicine. So this is a video. There you go. So this is real time. So in this case, the computer is remapping those letters specifically for the person's visual field defects. And this would all happen in a smartphone-like device. And this is an actual technology that's working today. Next slide. And of course, there is the Argus 2, which is developed by a company called Second Sight, very famous. And they're taking implants and implanting them directly into your vision center and bringing real-world inputs into your optic nerve area. And in this case, you have a series of hardware. You have the implant, you have the antenna, and now you have battery packs, and this all goes on to the person. And it's still kind of crude, but this is where the future is headed. Obviously, that's more invasive than the other technology I was talking about, but this is just another way that augmented reality is helping people with low vision disorders. So in summary, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for AR and VR for people with low vision disorders. It's a very large market, multi-billion-dollar market. What makes it compelling from a business perspective is that a lot of us are getting older, so the market is expanding, and because we are the tech group, if you will, we're demanding better care, and we're demanding that our toys follow us into our old age to help treat our disorders. And I think that the gaming industry is doing a big service to the healthcare industry when it comes to AR and VR. Thank you.